Hey gang, Circa here, and today's video is a little bit of a fun one because I found a cool way to phrase to you just how much the music industry has really opened your eyes to the game that's being played on us artistic folks. So let's get into it. Since 2017, I've become a business owner and I've had to skill up and learn about a whole lot of different things, including corporate financing and accounting and like that, friend. Through that lens of finance, I found a new way to phrase just how up record labels are and the music industry is. The theme of this video is that record labels are a capital arbitrage business. Real quick, if you don't know what an arbitrage is, let's say that I have access to someone who manufactures replacement lens caps. You got a camera, you got a lens, you need to put a cap on that lens. Oh, you lost your cap. Well, you got to go buy a lens cap from me. Now, the person who manufactures these, they're not going to set up a storefront for them and deal with all the other that goes with selling them. They just want to make them and then sell them in bulk, and I'm a reseller of them. I can get access to them for, let's say, 95 cents per if I buy like 10,000 of them, and I sell them to you for $5. So I make $4.05 off of every lens cap that I sell. That's an arbitrage, right? I'm arbitraging the difference between the wholesale price of the lens cap and the retail price, what you will pay for it. Most businesses, when you boil it down, if they're not creating something unique, it's an arbitrage business. They make a premium off of an arbitrage. McDonald's is a real estate arbitrage business. McDonald's is one of the biggest real estate investors in the world, and they're also a restaurant franchise. And they make most of their money from selling real estate to franchisors. Okay. So we know what an arbitrage is. What's capital? Capital is really just a way of describing money used for business purposes, right? If you want to start a business, if it takes investment, you need to raise capital so you can invest into the business. Or if you're a business that's existing and you want to take on some debt so that you have some money that you can invest into whatever, making more lens caps, then you're raising capital. And what I'm stating here to you is that record labels are a capital arbitrage business. They arbitrage not lens caps, but capital itself. Let's take Universal as an example. Universal has access to capital through various methods. I found this article recently where Vivendi, which I believe is parent corp of UMG, announced that they'd reached an agreement regarding a 5-year, €3 billion financing line with 4 leading banks. What does that mean? It means they can borrow up to €3 billion by issuing what are known as corporate bonds, which is basically like an IOU. And that corporate bond typically has a coupon attached to it. A coupon is just an interest rate. The annual coupon on the money that Universal borrowed, which was $1 billion in corporate bonds, was 0.75%. So they have access to lots of capital for very low interest. Now, they had just taken that €1 billion, and then last year in 2022, they invested it by buying US Treasury bonds. They'd be making over 5% annually on those bonds. And that would be a form of capital arbitrage. They'd be borrowing capital for 0.75%, and then they would be loaning it out to the US government at over 5%, and they make the difference. That's not what they do. Record labels don't buy treasury bonds for the most part. Instead, they reap their premium through a different method. Universal Music Group's balance sheet currently shows $10 billion in liabilities. Their long-term debt is $2.27 billion as of 2021, and their short-term debt is $318 million. This is all in euros. So if they have an outstanding nearly $3 billion in direct debt, corporate bonds, what are they doing with all that money? What are they investing it in order to make a profit? How do they utilize their capital? Funny story. Same statement that I pulled those numbers from in 2021, it showed that Universal had advanced royalty payments minus recoupments in the total of €364 million. This is Universal's entire business. They loan out the money they borrow to artists. So when I sign artists, They want to get them to pay back their loan with revenue, and they want the extra that they make to be far more than 0.75%. And I think you can now probably see where this is going. Let's take a hypothetical example. Universal borrows $150,000. They don't, they borrow a lot more, but let's say for the sake of example, they borrow the $150K. They then advance that to an artist as part of a record deal. In the record deal, it states that the artist will get $0 until they're able to recoup that amount of money. After which, the artist and the record label will split the profits of their music. Typically like 90-10, 80-20, it's not great. In some extreme circumstances, they might get 50-50. Let's say it's that. Let's say they get 50-50, right? The artist gets 50% of all the revenue, oh boy. In some cases, the recoupment of that $150K doesn't come out of the record label's 50%, it only comes out of the artist's 50%. So the music that the artist makes for the label has to generate $300,000 before the artist gets anything. At which point, not only has the artist paid back the $150K they borrowed, but the record label already made an extra $150K, which is 100% profit. Now, in most cases, they also have the full rights to all of the masters, the recordings that were created to generate that money in the first place. And they don't do this with one artist, they do this with 1,000 artists in order to increase the chances of having one or two breakout successes. So for every Justin Bieber, there's 10,000 not Justin Biebers, right? So at first you might think like, well, record labels do all this stuff for you, don't they? They do all this. No, they don't, dude. They just loan you money. Today, in order to get offered a record deal, you have to already be successful in finding a fan base. All the things that the record label would do for you, market you, put you in front of the right people, they don't do any of that. You do that, and then they come along and they offer you capital that they borrow at 1% or less of what you will eventually pay for that capital. You'd be better off getting a bank loan. Recently, a friend of mine who has a band, they've done very well for themselves using digital marketing for promoting their band and selling records and merchandise and tickets. So well, in fact, that they now sort of have like an industry promoter. They're playing a lot of the same festival billings that signed acts are playing. And as a result, they start getting pitched record deals. The majority of these deals were for a $15,000 advance, right? Not a lot of money in the world of like corporate financing to the scale that, you know, UMG could afford to pitch. And that varies from genre to genre and from case to case, but getting pitched advances from multiple record labels for $15,000. And I was like, do you need $15,000 that bad? Now, if you've never run a business before, you might not know that as a business owner, you need a payment processor so you can process credit cards. Online, that's done through like Stripe and PayPal and Braintree, which is a payment processor that's part of PayPal. And if you are getting enough transactions coming through your payment processor, they'll eventually offer you capital loans, typically for like a flat 5% fee or 10% fee. And they'll loan you out based on your past loans that you've repaid, and they'll also loan you out based on your transaction volume. So how many orders are you processing? So most small businesses that are built up on cash flow can get financing in a pinch that's pretty significant. Like I think Entrepreneur could take out like $200,000 at a cost of capital of like 5 to 10% if we needed to. If you're getting orders in from fans, then you can get capital. Like it's not crazy to get 15K. He told me, he said, well, we've done that before. We got this loan through PayPal. And I was like, what's your limit there? And he's like, we get 15K. And I was like, okay. That became an attractive offer, right? And when you're looking at a record deal, basically when you're looking at any contract, right? If they're offering you something and you don't have an alternative way to get it and it really matters, then you're not negotiating. You're at the whims of whatever your counterparty is wanting to do. So I say all that to say that like oftentimes if you're that big of an artist that a record label's sniffing around, you have an audience. And if you were to offer that audience things like merchandise and music that they can actually purchase, you now have a business established that's getting cash flow in the form of actual sales coming in. And there are a myriad ways, not just payment processors, to get access to capital if you're a business that's processing orders in the form of sales. And none of those ways to get capital involve you signing away 80% of the lifetime revenue potential of your property in order to get access to some measly like $15,000, dude. So let's say theoretically that you need to borrow $10,000 from me. Right? I refuse to loan you the 10K. Instead, I loan you 10K plus whatever I deem necessary to grow your little side hustle so that you can pay me back. And in return for doing that, you owe me 80% of the lifetime revenues of that side hustle. And I get the absolute worldwide trademark rights to your logo, your business logo, your name, your product names, all that stuff is mine. And I dictate what you do with it. Do you still want the loan? Do you want the loan? It sounds crazy, right? That sounds insane. That happens every day. Every day, artists go into a meeting with a record label and they say, sounds good. People have known this. Like, I just described it in maybe a novel way for you, but people have generally known this hustle for decades, like 4 decades. It's been transparent that this is going on and nothing has been done about it. And you're like, well, who cares if I can blow up and they can help me? Like, who cares? It actually doesn't work that way. Here's the way it works. You have a probability of blowing up and they will give you money in proportion to this bet. They're gambling on you, but they're also gambling on 1,000 artists. Do they have the infrastructure to support and give the best try to 1,000 artists? No. They don't. A crushing majority of those artists, they're just giving them the advance. They're getting the legal right to everything that they ever do. And they're saying like, go do something. So hopefully in the future, when you're thinking about maybe signing up with a record label, you don't. Stop signing these deals, man. For the love of God. They don't care about you. Every single one of them will tell you one thing and send you a contract that legally states the opposite of the thing they just told you in the meeting. And then they'll give you a lawyer, or they'll know a lawyer, or your lawyer will have a reason to play nice with them. And your lawyer will look it over and they'll say, yep, seems good. Are we good here? They'll just tell you to sign it. This has happened to multiple of my friends multiple times from multiple corners of the industry. I look over their contracts and I ask, did your lawyer talk to you about what this says? And they say, no. My lawyer said, looks great. Good job, dude. Stay independent. This is general advice too. Like, our business is independent. Our capital does not come from investors or VCs. Stay indie. That's my message for today. See you guys next week.